What's the scariest thing that science has proven real? Story 1. The Cascadia subduction zone. Once the shaking stops and the tsunami pulls back, the area is totally different. Kenneth Murphy, who runs FEMA's Region X, covering Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and Alaska, says, "We kind of assume that everything west of Interstate 5 is going to be wrecked." Story 2. It's more of a theory called the orangutan paradox. When we shoot a doc about orangutans, they don't really notice that we're watching them. But here's the kicker. They're the smartest of their kind. So what if aliens are checking us out and we're just as clueless as those orangutans? Story 3. Long ago in the past. The planet was thriving a million years back, and a million years before that, even a billion years before that. Honestly, even if we totally crush it as a civilization and stick around for another 20,000 years, spreading to a bunch of planets like in Dune, it's still just a tiny blip. The Earth wouldn't even bat an eye. Story 4. The craziest thing for me is that we've totally broken down how our minds work. We get social vibes, and those survival instincts we've had since way back in the day. We've got a ton of info on how to get a certain reaction from someone just like that. And what's wild is that companies use this knowledge to sell us stuff. Everything about how a product looks, from its shape to its color scheme to its smell, is super carefully crafted to sneak into our brains and get the reaction they want from us. Once you realize how much psychology goes into ads, you'll never see a commercial the same way again. Story 5. The creepiest thing that science hasn't figured out if the past really exists at all, which ties into a bigger question about whether the laws of nature will always stay the same. They just know that they have stayed the same so far. It's a pretty wild and thought-provoking rabbit hole to dive into. Story 6. The endless growth of the universe. Everything out there is not just spreading apart, but speeding up in its expansion, so that in the far-off future, any beings that are still around to gaze up from their ponder will see a blank sky without stars and galaxies since they've all moved beyond the cosmic edge. Every planet will glow, floating in the vast darkness, with no way of grasping the size and wonder of what used to be. Okay, so that's pretty heavy. Just chilling in the universe, and then, bam, it's all just dark voids and lonely planets. Kind of gives the universe's super lonely vibes. Like, imagine being the last sentient being in the cosmos, just sitting there like, well, this is awkward. Hey, at least we've got memes until the inevitable cosmic dread sets in, right? Thanks for this existential crisis, I guess. Story 7. One day, the galaxies are going to be so spaced out that folks in the future will think their galaxy and a couple nearby ones are all that's out there, since the others will be totally invisible. And thinking about that, what if there was something before that we can't see anymore? Maybe there was a time when we could figure out what the universe is all about, but now it's just not possible. Story 8. The sun's got an expiration date. In about 5 billion years, it's going to go kaboom and won't be giving off energy anymore. We'd better figure out a new spot to crash by then. The closest star, Proxima Centauri, is 0.5 light years from Earth, and with our tech right now, it would take us like 6,300 to get there. Story 9. Fake vacuum breakdown. All right, so this is in quantum physics, but basically, it gets you thinking that there might actually be lower energy vibe for matter like we know it. We can't be totally sure it isn't true, and thanks to those quantum wiggles, there's a tiny chance that someday, somewhere, a particle goes poof into its real lowest energy state. Depending on how far we are from that real vacuum compared to the fake one, results could be anything from slight tweaks in cosmic rules to everything we know falling apart, like total wipeout of all matter, or even the universe just collapsing in on itself. Story 10. If a big solar flare from the sun happened to shoot our way, all our gadgets and electronics would totally freak out and stop working for a bit. We could face major power outages around the globe that might drag on for months. And honestly, we haven't really done much to gear up for this possible crisis since we found out about it. Story 11. All right, so check this out. Gödel's incompleteness theorem. It's like saying there are some truths out there that we just can't prove no matter what. We might totally know something's legit, but can't back it up with proof, or we might not even know if something's true at all, since a lot of stuff comes from proofs and not just what we see. So basically, Gödel's incompleteness theorem is just the ultimate you can't prove me wrong card. Imagine being like, I know something is totally true, but I can't put it into words because, well, math, it's like that one friend who always says they have a secret but never spills the tea. It's kind of mind blowing, but also a bit annoying, like having a math problem where you just can't solve it no matter how hard you try. Not to mention, this is basically the math equivalent of it's complicated. So, congrats to Gödel for giving us more reasons to existentially spiral. Story 12, The Great Filter. So, the idea here is that the reason we don't spot a universe full of life is that life is super rare. That kind of suggests that one part of becoming smart is really unlikely. The great filter is that tricky part. It could be something that happened in the past, like some step in life's evolution on Earth that was a long shot and we somehow made it through. Or here's the spooky thought: what if the great filter is still ahead of us, and every smart civilization is baiting itself up for its own downfall? Edit. Just a heads up. Science hasn't totally nailed this down as a fact, but it's still a pretty concerning theory. Story 13. Not the creepiest thing ever, but I thought I'd throw it out since it's a bit sketchy. A lot of governments are starting to come clean about UFOs. That means unidentified flying objects, not little green dudes. These things have been picked up by some super high tech military gear. They've been seen totally smoking our top notch tech and jets. And of course, what's a chat about UFOs without tossing in the idea of aliens keeping an eye on us? It's spooky, but also kind of cool. Story 14. The size of the universe is just mind blowing. Seriously, it blows people's minds every day, and it's totally wild. Personally, I see it this way: we're tiny and not that significant, so why stress over stuff? But I totally get where the folks who think we're tiny and not that important, so what's the point, are coming from. The universe is massive, like trying to wrap your head around it is basically the adult version of trying to do math when you haven't had your coffee yet. I mean, it's kind of comforting, right? We're all just tiny specks floating in this cosmic soup. And yet here we are, stressing about midterms. But then again, I get the nihilistic vibe, like, why even get out of bed? The universe doesn't care. And that's a solid mood, honestly. I think I'll just drink my coffee and vibe with the idea that nothing matters until my roommate starts playing questionable music again. Story 15. Chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE. There are so many folks out there dealing with gaps in their brains from all the hits they've taken. Whether it's athletes, soldiers, they're out here struggling with messed up feelings, thinking skills, and just a whole lot worse, all because those in charge didn't give a hoot about what happened to them. Story 16. This quote from Carl Sagan really shows how tiny we are in the grand scheme of things. Take another look at that little dot. That's us. That's home. On that dot is everyone you care about, everyone you've ever met, and every single person who's ever existed. The mix of our happiness and struggles, all the different religions, beliefs, and economic ideas, hunter and gatherer, every brave soul and scaredy cat, every builder and destroyer of societies, every king and commoner, every young couple in love, every mom and dad, hopeful kid, inventor, and adventurer, every moral teacher, every shady politician, every celebrity, and every leader you can think of, every saint and sinner throughout history, all lived right there, on a speck of dust floating in a Earth is just this tiny stage in a mad cosmic show. Think about all the bloodshed caused by those generals and rulers, just so they could claim a tiny bit of that dot for themselves. Think about the endless cruelty shown by folks in one part of this pixel to the barely noticed folks in another, how often they misunderstand each other, and how quick they are to go for each other's throats, fueled by all that hatred. Our posture, our inflated egos, the idea that we have some special spot in the universe, go up against this pale light. Our planet is just a lonely speck in the huge cosmic dark. In all this vastness, there's no sign that help is coming from anywhere to save us from ourselves. Earth is the only place we know of that has life. There's nowhere else we go, at least not anytime soon. We can visit other places, sure, but settling down? Not happening yet. Like it or not, for now, Earth is where we plant our flag. People say astronomy is a humbling experience that builds character. There's probably no better way to show how silly our human self-importance is than this faraway image of our little world. For me, it highlights our duty to be kinder to each other and to take care of and appreciate this pale blue dot, the one and only home we've ever had. Story 17. Yo, what's up, everyone? Let's talk about COVID. So, here's the deal. I'm an ICU nurse, and I've been on the front lines during the craziest parts of the pandemic. I started out managing nurses in nursing homes and then moved to the ICU. Honestly, it's hard for me to put into words just how scary this virus can be. I've seen young, healthy folks get taken down by it, and there was nothing I could do to help them. I've watched people who did everything right end up in my care for months. The tricky part is, if you don't have a basic understanding of intensive care, it's tough to really grasp what critical actually means. Let me break it down for you in case you're not following. Picture this. You get sick and suddenly can't breathe on your own. You get rushed to the ICU, totally out cold, so you're snoozing and pain-free. And they give you meds that relax all your muscles, including the ones you need to breathe. Then they stick a tube down your throat, hooking you up to a machine that breathes for you, along with a bunch of meds, just to keep you alive while your body fights this nasty virus. But guess what? Even with all that, it might not be enough, and you still can't get enough oxygen. So we flip you over on your stomach to help. But after a day, we have to turn you back onto your back, because staying like that too long can cause issues. Then, just half an hour later, your tests show you're not breathing well again, so we flip you back over. And we just do this over and over for days, weeks, months. On top of that, your family can't even come near you. They get to see you through a glass door if that's even an option. Plus, if your heart stops, the nurses and docs can't help until they're sued properly. Can you picture what that's like? Trust me, that's only about 20% of what critical really means when we're talking about COVID. P.S. If you're one of those folks who doubts all this or is anti-vaccine, just please don't. Seriously. Story 18, I can't believe nobody's talking about this, especially since so much of the stuff posted here is just speculation. The scariest thing that science has confirmed is climate change. Seriously, it's the most terrifying. Just look how things are going in the southwestern US. It's only going to get worse. Folks are going to be forced out of their homes, pushed into poverty, and it could lead to a lot of serious problems. If we can't get our act together and to tackle a bunch of ecological issues, we're really in trouble. This isn't some distant future problem like it used to seem back in the 70s and 80s. It's going to be up to people alive right now to make real changes. A kid born today will basically become an adult right around the time when even shutting off all emissions won't keep us under that often discussed 1.5 C limit. Fixing this mess quickly isn't going to be easy, no matter what those procrastinating folks say about if we decarbonize just right, we can dodge most of the economic hit. We're all going to have to be ready to accept a dip in our quality of life to cut down our overall resource use. We're also going to need to step up and help out poorer countries to decarbonize, because we can't wait around for them to slowly phase out coal and natural gas, like Europe has been able to do, and like America's messing up. If we all keep rejecting these ideas as they come up in legislation over the few years, we're going to have to look the next generation in the eye and explain how we just sat there on a huge issue because we like driving to work, buying cheap stuff, and didn't want to help out those in need even a little. Now they'll have to deal with the fallout of our inaction because it's too late for anything but damage control. Yeah, climate change is definitely the stuff of nightmares. It's like, here's a real horror story, folks. It's called Our Future. With wildfires, droughts, and floods becoming the new norm, it kind of feels like we're living in a dystopian film where we forgot to pack the survival gear. It's wild that we're more freaked out about random TikTok challenges than the actual impending doom of our planet. Guess we'll just keep scrolling until the Earth literally melts under us. Classic. Story 19. Gamma ray bursts and magnetars are pretty spooky, right? And don't forget about those wandering black holes that got kicked out of their galaxies. There are rogue planets floating around too. But honestly, those black holes sound way more terrifying. A black hole could totally munch on our sun, and we wouldn't even realize it for like 7 minutes. Story 20. It's wild how some folks can be so oblivious that they don't even get how clueless they are. You know, that whole Dunning-Krueger thing. Makes me think I might be a bit less sharp than I believe too. Everyone just sees the world based on their own vibes and what they've been through. So, two people could be going through the exact same thing, but totally not feel it the same way at all. Story 21, my favorite, is Simpson's paradox. A college was sued for having a better acceptance rate for males than females, but that was only true in total. Each department, individually, had better female acceptance rates than male acceptance rates. It sounds impossible, but it is totally possible if you have a lot of female candidates applying to the especially hard to get into departments. Note, in the actual case, there were a couple of departments that didn't have better acceptance rates for females, but it is entirely possible for every department to have better acceptance rates for females, while in total the university has a better acceptance rate for males. If you don't believe me, check out the Wikipedia article, which has some actual examples with numbers. Story 22, the double slit experiment. During experiments with subatomic particles, they tried to find out a bit about how they behave and whether or not they wave-like or particle-like. With classical physics and experiments, we know how particles will behave, like bullets, and how sound or water waves behave. Photons and other particles behave like both. Not only do they behave like both, but they switch unexpectedly. With one slit open, electrons will behave like a particle. With two open, they will show wave-like interference. No problem. Clearly, they're just bouncing off each other or something. So they fire one at a time. Even with so few going through, the things are apparently interfering with themselves and hitting the with a wave-like interference. Okay, a little weird. So now let's see which one it really goes through to find out how this works. They set up a detector which will interact with the electron if it goes through one of the slits, and then we'll know which one it came through. Well, now they're going through both slits as though they were bullets, creating no interference pattern. Turn the detector off, they come in as a wave. By attempting to observe, measure it, we change the system, and the entire thing changes. Story 23, the Monty Hall problem. Basically, in a game like The Price is Right, when you pick one of the three doors and the host opens one of the other doors to show you what's inside, then offers you the chance to keep your door or take the unopened one, you have a better chance of winning if you switch doors. I forget the exact reasoning why, but it's still something to do with percentages and stuff. Basically, when you have the option to switch, there's a 50% chance you win. But on the first pick, chances are you picked incorrectly. Only 33% chance to win. So you're more likely to switch to the winning door than away from it, since the door the host opens will always be a losing door. Story 24, as matter loses energy and shifts phases, the molecules can get closer together because of the lowered energy. This density shift is why you can liquids and solids through the air and solids through liquids, with exceptions to the materials used, of course. So, as an example, it's safe to say that molten lead is less dense than solid lead and more dense than gaseous lead. Yes, water is less dense as a solid than a liquid. This is because water reaches a point where it begins to repel itself again due to the dipoles of the water molecules. Water is, to my knowledge, the only thing that is less dense as a solid than a liquid. I have since heard that there are others, but water is the one I know. Story 25, the solution to the Monty Hall paradox. I can even do the math myself, but it still feels intuitively wrong. The scenario, you're on a game show and the host offers you a choice between three doors. Behind one door is $1 million. Behind the other two doors, you get nothing. You make your choice. But before the host opens the door to reveal what's inside, he opens one of the other two doors to reveal nothing behind that one. He then offers you a second choice. Do you keep the door that you already chose? Or do you switch to the other unopened door? Does it matter? Intuitively, it feels like it shouldn't matter, that you have a 50-50 chance of winning whether you switch to the other door or keep the one you chose originally. Mathematical reality should switch. You have double the chance of winning the money if you switch to the other door compared with staying put. Close second, in any random group of just 23 people, you will have more than 50% chance that at least two of them will share the same birthday. Again, I can do the math to prove this, but it still doesn't feel right. Story 26, that the speed of light can't be broken. They said flight was physically impossible with a machine. Then they said breaking the sound barrier was impossible. I just don't believe that we're right this time either. Edit. Thanks everyone telling us this is scientifically proven as if we aren't aware. Something scientifically proven that you are skeptical of is the point of the thread. The speed of light is a whole other level. The speed of sound is broken by the tip of a whip. It's not too hard and never impossible. The speed of light is fundamental to the universe. It really has nothing to do with light. It's the speed that information can travel. The gravitational force of the sun travels at the speed of light, meaning if the sun vanished, the Earth would still orbit it for 8 minutes, which is the time it takes for the Earth to know the sun is gone. We are actually always moving at the speed of light. It's just that we move that fast through time rather than space. Think of normal time progression as going through time at the speed of light, and any movement you make through space, you have to subtract that much movement through time. So if I'm going 3/4 the speed of light through space, I am now only going 1/4 the speed of light through time. Roughly, I believe there's some trig involved. So going the speed of light means I stop experiencing time. Not to mention it would take infinite energy. It's just not happening. Story 27, if you believe anything because it's scientifically proven, you're doing science wrong. Science doesn't say this is true. Science says, I think this might be true. Here's the experiment I did. These are the results. And they seem to indicate that my theory is true. Please try to find if I made any mistakes and see if your own experiments can disprove my theory. If nobody can disprove your theory, it's generally accepted until somebody comes up with one that more closely matches observations. If you're told this is true and you can't question it, you're not doing science, you're doing religion.